Ethan Vaughn had it all. Millions in the bank, a picture-perfect bride, and 300 guests waiting to watch him say, "I do." But when the church doors crashed open and his ex-girlfriend walked down that aisle holding a baby who looked exactly like him, his entire world shattered in front of everyone he knew. What he didn't know was that the woman he was about to marry had been hiding a secret so devastating it would destroy her reputation and flip his life upside down. Because sometimes the biggest mistake isn't the one you make at the altar, it's the one you almost make. This is a story about lies, second chances, and a love that refused to stay buried. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me in the comments if you believe people deserve a second chance after breaking your heart, because what happens next will make you question everything you thought you knew about forgiveness. The morning light spread across Charleston like honey, warm and golden, turning the old mansions into something out of a dream. Inside the biggest house on Battery Street, Ethan Vaughn stood in front of a full-length mirror, adjusting his white silk tie for the third time. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. "You good, man?" His best friend Marcus stepped into the room, already dressed in his groomsman tuxedo. "You look like you're about to jump out of your own skin." Ethan forced a smile. "Just wedding jitters." But that wasn't true, not really. The truth sat heavy in his chest like a stone he couldn't swallow. He was marrying Clara Reed in 3 hours, and he couldn't stop thinking about someone else. "Here," Marcus handed him a glass of water. "Drink this. Your mum's downstairs losing her mind over the flower arrangements, and Clara's been texting every 5 minutes. Everything's going according to plan." According to plan. The words echoed in Ethan's head as he took a sip. His whole life had been according to plan. Graduate top of his class, start a business, make millions by 30, marry the right woman, have the perfect family. But what did perfect mean when your heart wasn't in it? He pushed the thought away and straightened his shoulders. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of his life. He needed to act like it. Downstairs, the mansion buzzed with activity. Photographers moved through rooms, capturing every detail. His mother, Helen Vaughn, directed staff with the precision of a military general. She wore a silver dress that probably cost more than most people's cars, and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Ethan, darling." She kissed the air near his cheek, careful not to smudge her makeup. "You look handsome. Clara is going to be thrilled." "Thanks, Mom. I still can't believe my baby boy is getting married." She adjusted his boutonniere with careful fingers. "Clara comes from such a good family. This union will be wonderful for business, and she'll make an excellent wife." There it was again. Business. Excellence. The plan. Ethan nodded because he didn't know what else to do. His mother had always cared more about appearances than feelings. When he was growing up, she'd taught him that success meant looking good, acting right, and never letting people see you sweat. Emotions were messy. Weakness was unacceptable. He'd learned those lessons well, maybe too well. "The cars are ready," someone called from the hallway. "Time to go." Across town, in a small apartment above a bakery, Amara Lewis sat on her worn couch with her baby son nestled against her chest. Noah's tiny hand curled around her finger, holding on like she was his whole world, because she was. She stared at the cream-colored invitation on her coffee table. The paper was thick and expensive, with elegant script that read, "You are cordially invited to the wedding of Clara Marie Reed and Ethan James Vaughn." Her hands trembled as she picked it up again. She'd received it 2 months ago, forwarded from an old address by a friend who thought she'd want to know. At first she'd laughed, a bitter, sad laugh that made Noah cry. Then she'd thrown it in the trash, but she'd pulled it back out the next day, and the day after that, and every day since. "What do I do, baby?" she whispered to Noah. He cooed and grabbed at her necklace, oblivious to her pain. "Do I let him walk down that aisle without knowing, without seeing you?" For over a year, she'd tried to tell Ethan about Noah. She'd sent messages, emails, even tried calling his office, but nothing went through. His assistant always said he was busy, in meetings, unavailable. Eventually, Amara stopped trying. She figured he didn't want to know. That he'd moved on with his fancy life and his fancy girlfriend, and there was no room in it for her or their child. She'd been fine with that, or at least she'd told herself she was fine with it. She had Noah. She had her brother David and his wife. She had her job at the community center, and her little apartment that smelled like fresh bread from the bakery below. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest and real. But now Ethan was getting married. And once he said those vows, once he put that ring on Clara's finger, it would be too late. Noah would grow up without a father, and Ethan would never know he had a son. "I can't do that to you," Amara said, kissing Noah's forehead. You deserve to know your daddy, even if he doesn't want us. She stood up. Noah balanced on her hip and walked to her bedroom. She pulled out the only nice dress she owned, a simple blue sundress she'd worn to her cousin's wedding last summer. It would have to do. Her brother David appeared in the doorway, concern written all over his face. You're not seriously going. I have to. Amara, that man broke your heart. He ignored your messages. He moved on. Why would you? Because Noah deserves a father. The words came out sharper than she meant them to. She took a breath, softening. I'm not doing this for me, David. I'm doing it for our son. He needs to know I tried, that I fought for him. David shook his head, but didn't argue anymore. He knew his sister. Once Amara made up her mind, there was no stopping her. She dressed quickly, her hands shaking the whole time. She pulled her hair back into a simple bun and put on the small gold hoops her grandmother had given her. No makeup, no fancy shoes, just herself, her baby, and the truth. You got this, she told her reflection. But her reflection didn't look convinced. The drive to the church took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of second-guessing every decision she'd ever made. 20 minutes of Noah babbling happily in his car seat, unaware that his mother was about to turn his father's world upside down. She parked 3 blocks away because the streets near the cathedral were packed with expensive cars and professional photographers. People in designer clothes walked toward the entrance, laughing and chatting like this was the social event of the season. Amara's stomach twisted. She didn't belong here. She was a girl from the east side who worked with kids and lived paycheck to paycheck. These people probably spent more on their shoes than she made in a month. But she thought of Noah's future, his right to know where he came from, and she forced herself to keep walking. The cathedral rose before her like something out of a fairy tale. White stone, stained glass windows, bells that chimed as she approached. It was beautiful, perfect. Everything Ethan had probably always wanted. She stood at the bottom of the marble steps, Noah getting heavier in her arms. People streamed past her, too focused on their own excitement to notice the nervous woman in the simple blue dress. Inside, she could hear organ music starting. The ceremony was about to begin. Last chance to turn back, she whispered to herself, but she didn't turn back. She climbed those steps one at a time, each one feeling like a mountain. Noah grabbed at her hair, making happy sounds, and she held him closer. At the top, 2 ushers stood by the doors. They looked at her with barely hidden judgment, taking in her modest dress, her crying baby, her lack of an expensive handbag or jewelry. Are you on the bride's side or the groom's? One asked, his tone polite but cold. Neither, Amara said. Both? I don't know. They exchanged glances. Ma'am, the ceremony is about to start. If you're not a guest, I need to see Ethan. Just for a minute, please. I'm sorry, but that's not possible. If you'll excuse us. The organ music swelled inside. Someone was walking down the aisle. It was happening. Right now. Amara didn't think. She just moved. She pushed past the ushers, through the heavy wooden doors, and into the cathedral. Inside the church, Ethan stood at the altar, hands clasped in front of him, watching Clara glide down the aisle on her father's arm. She looked stunning. Her dress was custom-made, covered in crystals that caught the light. Her smile was bright and confident. She looked like she'd been born for this moment. The guests oohed and ahed. Cameras flashed. His mother dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief that probably cost $100. This was it, the moment he'd been planning for 2 years. The moment that would secure his future, his business connections, his family's legacy. So why did he feel like he was drowning? Clara reached the altar and handed her bouquet to her maid of honor. Her father kissed her cheek and stepped back. She turned to Ethan, her eyes shining. The priest opened his Bible and smiled at the crowd. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. Ethan heard the words but didn't process them. His mind was somewhere else. On a different day, 3 years ago, when he'd met a girl at a coffee shop who'd laughed at his terrible jokes and stolen his heart with a single smile. Amara. He'd loved her. God. He'd loved her so much it scared him. But when his business started taking off and his mother started pushing him towards someone more suitable, he'd let himself drift. He'd been weak, and when Amara had disappeared without explanation, he'd told himself it was for the best. Except it wasn't. Nothing had felt right since she left. And do you, Clara Marie Reed, the priest was saying, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do. Clara's voice rang out clear and strong. And do you, Ethan James Vaughan? The doors at the back of the church crashed open. Every head turned. The organ music stopped. The photographer's camera froze mid-click. And there she was, Amara, standing in the doorway with sunlight streaming in behind her, holding a baby on her hip. Her hair was pulled back from her face, showing those warm brown eyes that had haunted his dreams for 2 years. She wore a simple blue dress and no jewelry except small gold earrings. She looked terrified and brave and more beautiful than he remembered. The baby. There was a baby. Ethan's heart stopped. Actually stopped beating for several seconds before slamming back to life in his chest. "Ethan!" Clara's voice cut through the shocked silence. "Who is that?" But Ethan couldn't answer. He couldn't move. He could only stare at Amara and the child in her arms, a little boy with brown skin, dark curly hair, and eyes that looked exactly like Ethan's mother's eyes, like Ethan's grandfather's eyes, like Ethan's eyes. "I'm sorry." Amara's voice shook but carried through the cathedral. "I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we need to talk, Ethan. Before you make a mistake you can't take back." The church erupted. Guests started whispering, pointing, pulling out their phones. Clara's mother stood up, her face red with fury. "How dare you! Security! Someone get this woman out of here!" But Ethan moved first. He stepped down from the altar, his legs feeling like they belonged to someone else. He walked down the aisle, his footsteps echoing on the marble floor. Everyone watched. Cameras flashed. His mother called his name. He ignored it all. When he reached Amara, she looked up at him with those eyes that had always seen straight through his walls. The baby stared at him too, curious and unafraid. "Is he—" Ethan couldn't finish the sentence. His throat had closed up completely. Amara shifted Noah to her other hip. "His name is Noah. He's 13 months old." She paused, then added quietly, "He's your son." The words hit him like a truck. The cathedral spun. Somewhere behind him, Clara was crying. Her mother was shouting. His mother was calling for security. But all Ethan could see was this child, this perfect, beautiful child, who had his eyes. "I tried to tell you," Amara continued, her voice breaking. "I sent messages, called your office, sent emails, but nothing got through. I thought you didn't want to know, but I couldn't let you marry someone else without giving you the chance to meet your son, to know he exists." Ethan reached out with a shaking hand. Noah grabbed his finger and squeezed, making a happy sound. And something inside Ethan cracked wide open, something he'd been keeping locked up for years. All the fear, all the walls, all the careful plans. "Gone. We need to talk," he said, his voice rough. "Somewhere private." "Ethan James Vaughn," his mother's voice cut through the chaos. "Step away from that woman this instant." But Ethan didn't move. Instead, he looked at Amara, really looked at her, and saw everything he'd been missing, everything he'd given up because he was too scared to fight for what mattered. "Please," he said, "give me 5 minutes." Amara nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Okay." He turned back to the altar. Clara stood there in her crystal dress, mascara running, her perfect composure completely shattered. Behind her, their guests had descended into chaos. Phones were out everywhere, recording every second. This was going to be all over social media within the hour. His mother pushed through the crowd, her face twisted with anger. "Ethan, whatever that woman told you is a lie. She's trying to ruin your wedding. Can't you see that? Security." "No." Ethan's voice came out stronger than he expected. "Nobody touches her. Have you lost your mind? Your wedding? There's not going to be a wedding." The words felt both terrifying and liberating. He looked at Clara, and for the first time, he felt something like relief. "I'm sorry, Clara. I can't do this." "Can't do what?" Clara's voice rose to a shriek. "Marry me? Because some woman shows up with a baby and makes claims? How do you even know it's yours?" "Look at him." Ethan gestured to Noah, who was still clutching his finger. "Just look at him." Clara did, and her face went pale, because even she couldn't deny what everyone else could see. The resemblance was unmistakable. "Clara, I'm sorry," Ethan said again. "You deserve someone who can give you their whole heart, and I can't. I never could. You're throwing away everything." Clara's mother pushed forward, her voice shrill. 2 years of planning, the business merger, your reputation. For some, don't. Ethan's voice went cold. Don't finish that sentence. He turned back to Amara, who looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Noah had started to fuss, overwhelmed by all the noise and strangers. Ethan made a decision. "Come with me," he said to Amara. "Both of you." He led them down the side aisle, away from the main doors and the growing crowd of shocked guests. Behind them, he heard his mother trying to restore order, heard Clara sobbing, heard the priest suggesting everyone remain calm, but Ethan didn't look back. For the first time in years, he was moving forward instead of following someone else's plan, and it felt right. They exited through a side door into a small garden behind the church. Ancient oak trees provided shade, and the noise from inside faded to a dull roar. Amara set Noah down on the grass, and he immediately started crawling toward a butterfly. "I'm sorry," she said again, wiping her eyes. "I didn't want to do it like this. I waited outside for 20 minutes trying to find the courage, but then I heard the music starting and I couldn't let you marry her without knowing." "How long have you been trying to reach me?" Ethan asked. "Since I found out I was pregnant. 15 months. She hugged herself, looking small and lost. "Your assistant always said you were busy, that you'd get back to me, but you never did. 15 months. Over a year. And he'd had no idea. "I never got any messages," he said slowly. "Not one. Clara was my assistant back then. Before we started dating." The implication hung in the air between them. Amara's eyes widened. "She deleted them." "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." Anger bubbled up in his chest, hot and fierce. If Clara had kept this from him, if she'd stolen a year of his son's life. Noah crawled back over and pulled himself up using Ethan's pants leg, looking up at him with those familiar eyes. Ethan's anger melted into something else, something overwhelming and tender and terrifying. "Can I hold him?" he asked. Amara hesitated, then nodded. "Support his head." Ethan picked up Noah carefully, like he was holding something made of glass. The baby was heavier than he expected, solid and real. Noah grabbed Ethan's tie and tried to put it in his mouth, babbling happily. And Ethan fell in love just like that. In one moment, his entire world reorganized itself around this child, this little boy who had his eyes and his grandfather's nose and his mother's beautiful smile. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there, that you had to do this alone." "I wasn't completely alone," Amara said softly. "I had my brother, and Noah he's everything. He made it worth it." They stood there in the garden, this strange little family that had been torn apart and might never be whole. Ethan didn't know what happened next, didn't know how to fix what had been broken or build what should have been built a year ago. But as Noah laughed and pulled at his tie, as Amara watched them with tears still on her cheeks, Ethan knew one thing for certain. He wasn't walking back into that church. He wasn't marrying Clara, and he wasn't going to let Amara disappear again. Not this time. The garden door burst open. Clara stood there still in her wedding dress, her face a mess of makeup and tears. "So that's it? You're just going to throw everything away?" 2 years, Ethan, 2 years of my life." "I'm sorry," Ethan said, and he meant it. "But this changes everything." "That baby doesn't change anything." Clara's voice went shrill. "You don't even know if it's yours. She could be lying." Amara said quietly. "His name is Noah, and I have the DNA test results from when he was born. I can show you." She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and opened a document. Ethan read it twice, his heart pounding. 99.9% probability of paternity. There was no doubt. Clara snatched the phone and looked at it, her face going from red to white. "This is fake. It has to be." "It's not." Amara took her phone back. "I know you don't want to believe it. I know this ruins your plans. But it's the truth." "My plans?" Clara laughed, high and bitter. "My plans? What about his business, his reputation? Do you have any idea what this is going to do to him?" "I don't care about his business or his reputation," Amara said, standing straighter. "I care about my son having a father. That's all I've ever cared about." Clara turned on Ethan. "If you walk away from me now, you're going to lose everything. Every business connection I brought you, every door my family opened, everything." Ethan looked at Noah, who had fallen asleep against his shoulder, tiny hand still clutching his tie. Then he looked at Amara, who stood there in her simple blue dress, with grass stains on her shoes, and hope in her eyes, and he knew his answer. "Then I lose everything," he said. "But I gain something more important." Clara's face crumpled. For a moment, he saw real pain there, and he felt genuinely sorry. She hadn't deserved this. But she also hadn't deserved a husband who couldn't love her the way she needed to be loved. "I hope you're happy together," Clara spat, then turned and fled back into the church. Ethan and Amara stood in silence, Noah sleeping between them. Inside the cathedral they could hear chaos. Voices raised, cars starting, people leaving. "What now?" Amara asked. Ethan didn't have an answer. He'd just blown up his entire life in front of 300 witnesses. By tonight this would be all over social media. By tomorrow it would probably be in the news. His business partners would be furious. His mother would never forgive him. But as he looked down at his sleeping son, he realized he didn't care. Now, he said, we figure this out. Together. Amara smiled, small and tentative but real. And for the first time in 2 years, Ethan felt like he could breathe. The next morning, Ethan woke up on a couch that was too short for his 6-foot frame. His neck hurt. His back hurt. Everything hurt. But when he opened his eyes and saw where he was, he remembered why it was worth it. Amara's apartment was small and modest, nothing like the mansion he'd left behind. The walls needed paint. The furniture was second-hand, but it was clean and warm, with pictures on the walls and toys scattered on the floor. It felt like a home. His mansion had never felt like a home. He sat up slowly, trying not to make noise. Through the bedroom door, he could hear Noah babbling to himself in his crib. Amara's voice answered, soft and tired. She'd been up with the baby twice during the night. Ethan had heard her walking the floor, singing quiet lullabies. He'd offered to help, but she'd said no. She was used to doing it alone. That was going to change. Ethan stood and stretched, his dress shirt from yesterday wrinkled and missing its tie. Noah had kept that as a souvenir. He walked to the small kitchen and looked around, trying to figure out how the coffee maker worked. Top cabinet, left side. He turned. Amara stood in the doorway wearing an oversized t-shirt and pajama pants, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked tired but beautiful. She'd always looked beautiful to him. Thanks, he said, finding the coffee. I was trying not to wake you. Noah's my alarm clock. He doesn't care about sleep schedules. She moved past him to start the coffee maker, their arms brushing. The touch sent electricity through him just like it always had. You didn't have to stay the night. I wanted to. He leaned against the counter. We have a lot to figure out. Like what you're going to tell your mother. Amara's voice was gentle but serious. Or your business partners. Or the media that's probably camped outside your house. Ethan pulled out his phone. He'd turned it off last night after the 100th call. Now he powered it on and immediately regretted it. 300 missed calls, 500 text messages, dozens of voicemails. His mother, Marcus, business partners, reporters, people he hadn't talked to in years suddenly wanted to know what happened. And Clara, 15 missed calls from Clara. This is bad, he muttered, scrolling through the messages. I'm sorry. Amara's voice was small. I ruined everything, didn't I? No. Ethan looked up sharply. Don't apologize. You didn't ruin anything. You told me the truth. That's more than anyone else has done. The coffee maker beeped. Amara poured 2 cups, adding cream to hers. She handed him one black, remembering how he took it even after all this time. They sat at her small kitchen table, the morning sun streaming through the window. I need to take a paternity test, Ethan said. Not because I don't believe you, but because it's official, legal. So when we figure out custody and everything else, there's no question. Okay. Amara wrapped her hands around her mug. There's a clinic downtown. We can go today if you want. I want. He paused. And Amara? I need to know what happened. Why you left. Why you didn't tell me you were pregnant before you disappeared. She was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I got pregnant right before everything fell apart between us. You remember that last month? Ethan nodded. He remembered. He'd been stressed about a big business deal, spending 16-hour days at the office. He'd cancelled dates, missed calls, been distant. And Clara had been there, his assistant, always helpful, always understanding. Too understanding. I found a text on your phone, Amara continued. From Clara. She said she was glad you'd finally seen the truth about us. That I wasn't right for you. That she'd be there whenever you were ready to move on. Ethan's stomach dropped. I never sent any text like that. I know that now. But then, I was 26, pregnant and terrified. I thought you were cheating, that you wanted to break up but didn't know how. So I left before you could push me out. She wiped her eyes. I tried to tell you about the baby after Noah was born. But every time I called, Clara answered. She always said you were busy. That you'd call back, you never did. Because she never told me. Rage built in Ethan's chest, hot and fierce. She deleted your messages, blocked your calls. She made sure I never knew. Why would she do that? Because she wanted me for herself. Ethan stood, pacing the small kitchen. She was my assistant for 6 months before we started dating. Looking back, she was always there, always pushing me toward better opportunities. Always suggesting I needed someone from the right background, the right family. Someone like her, Amara said quietly. Someone like her. Ethan stopped pacing and looked at Amara. I'm so sorry. I should have fought harder for us. I should have called you, come to your apartment, not let you just disappear. I was a coward. You didn't know I was pregnant. That doesn't matter. I loved you, Amara. I should have fought for that love. Instead, I let my mother's opinions and Clara's manipulation push me into something that was never real. Amara stood and walked over to him. She reached up and touched his face gently. We both made mistakes, but we have a chance to make it right now, for Noah. Before Ethan could respond, Noah started crying from the bedroom. Amara moved to get him, but Ethan stopped her. Let me. He walked into the small bedroom. Noah stood in his crib, tears on his face, reaching up with both arms. When he saw Ethan, he stopped crying and smiled. That smile hit Ethan like a punch to the chest. Hey, buddy, Ethan said, picking him up. Noah immediately grabbed his shirt and buried his face in Ethan's shoulder. It's okay. Daddy's here. The word felt strange on his tongue. Daddy. He was somebody's daddy. This perfect little boy was his son. He carried Noah back to the kitchen. Amara had started making breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast. Simple food, but it smelled amazing. Better than all the fancy restaurant meals he'd eaten at his wedding reception that never happened. He needs his diaper changed, Amara said, pointing to a changing table in the corner of the living room. Diapers are underneath. Ethan stared at the changing table. He'd never changed a diaper in his life. You'll figure it out. Amara's lips twitched with barely hidden amusement. It's not rocket science. It wasn't rocket science, but it was messy and awkward, and Noah kept trying to roll away. By the time Ethan finished, he was sweating and the diaper was slightly crooked, but Noah was clean and happy, so he counted it as a win. They ate breakfast together at the small table. Noah sat in a high chair, making a mess with his eggs and giggling every time he dropped a piece on the floor. Ethan watched him, memorizing every detail. The way his nose wrinkled when he laughed, the dimple in his left cheek, the curl of his hair. His phone rang again. His mother. Ethan sent it to voicemail. You have to talk to her eventually, Amara said. I know, but not yet. First, I need to handle Clara. Amara's expression darkened. What are you going to do? Get the truth, and make sure she can't hurt us anymore. Later that afternoon, Ethan sat in a downtown cafe, waiting. He'd chosen a public place deliberately. Lots of witnesses, lots of people. He didn't want to give Clara any chance to twist what happened. She walked in 20 minutes late, wearing designer sunglasses and a hat pulled low. Even trying to hide, she looked polished and perfect. That had been part of her appeal once. Now it just seemed fake. She sat down across from him without ordering anything. You have some nerve calling me after what you did. What I did? Ethan kept his voice level. Clara, we need to talk about the messages. What messages? The messages from Amara, the ones she sent me when she was pregnant, the ones you deleted. Clara's face went pale beneath her makeup. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie. Ethan leaned forward. You were my assistant. You had access to my phone, my email, everything. Amara tried to reach me dozens of times and I never got a single message. That doesn't happen by accident. Maybe she's lying, Clara said, but her voice wavered. Maybe she never sent anything. Maybe this is all part of some scheme to get your money. She doesn't want my money, she just wants me to know my son. Ethan pulled out his phone and opened the voice recorder app. He'd learned this trick from his lawyer. Always get it on record. I need you to tell me the truth, Clara. Did you delete Amara's messages? Ethan, please. Did you? Silence stretched between them. Other cafe patrons glanced over, probably recognizing them from yesterday's disaster. Clara seemed to shrink in her seat. Fine, she finally whispered. Yes, I deleted them. Ethan's hand tightened around his phone. Why? Because you were mine. The words burst out of her, loud and desperate. I worked for 6 months watching you pine over some girl who wasn't good enough for you, who didn't understand your world or your goals. You needed someone who could help you build an empire, not drag you down. So you decided you were that someone. Yes, and I was right. Look at what we accomplished together. Your business tripled. You made connections with the most powerful families in Charleston. You became someone important. I became someone miserable, Ethan said quietly. I became someone who was about to marry a woman he didn't love, because it looked good on paper. Clara's face crumpled. For the first time, he saw real emotion beneath her perfect exterior. I loved you, I really did. I thought if I could just get you away from her, you'd see that we were perfect together, that we made sense. We never made sense, Clara. You made that up. Ethan stood, pocketing his phone with the recording safely saved. You lied to me. You kept me from my son for over a year. You manipulated me into a relationship based on nothing real. Where are you going? To my lawyer. And then to the media if I have to. I'm going to make sure everyone knows the truth about why our wedding fell apart. You'll ruin me. Clara's voice broke. My reputation, my family, everything. Please, Ethan, I'm sorry. I made a mistake, but please don't destroy my life. Ethan looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a woman who'd been so desperate to have what she wanted that she'd hurt everyone around her. He should have been angrier, should have wanted revenge, but mostly he just felt sad. I'm not going to destroy you, he said, but I'm not going to protect you either. If anyone asks me why the wedding ended, I'm going to tell them the truth. What you do with that is up to you. He left her sitting there, her perfect facade finally cracking. Outside, the Charleston heat hit him like a wall. His phone buzzed with another call from his mother. This time he answered. Ethan James Vaughn, where have you been? Helen's voice could have frozen fire. Do you have any idea what you've done? The humiliation, the gossip. I have had to unplug my phone because of the calls. Mum, Don't mum me. You left your bride at the altar for some woman with a baby who could belong to anyone. Have you lost your mind? The baby is mine, Mum. I have the DNA test to prove it. Silence. Then, quieter. You took a test? This morning. Results should be back tonight. Ethan leaned against his car. His name is Noah. He's 13 months old. And he's my son. Another long silence. This changes everything. I know. You need to come home. We need to discuss how to handle this. The media, the family, the business implications. I'm not coming home. Not yet. Ethan unlocked his car. I need to focus on my son right now. Everything else can wait. Everything else? His mother's voice rose. Your business is falling apart. 3 partners called to discuss dissolving your agreements. The press is calling you irresponsible and Clara a victim. You can't just ignore this. Watch me. Ethan ended the call and got in his car. He drove back to Amara's apartment, his mind racing. His mother was right about one thing. This was a disaster for his business, but she was wrong about what mattered. His reputation could be rebuilt. His business could recover. He'd only get one chance to be a father to Noah. When he knocked on Amara's door, she opened it, looking worried. How did it go? I got her confession. On tape. He stepped inside. She admitted to deleting your messages. She said she did it because she thought she was better for me than you were. Amara closed her eyes. I can't believe she did that. All those months, I thought you just didn't care, that you'd moved on and didn't want to know about Noah. I would have cared. Ethan took her hand. I would have been there for every appointment, every late night, every first. She stole that from both of us. What are you going to do with the recording? Whatever I need to do to protect you and Noah. If the media tries to paint you as some kind of homewrecker, I'll release it. I'll make sure everyone knows the truth. Noah crawled over and pulled himself up using Ethan's legs. Ethan picked him up, settling him on his hip like it was the most natural thing in the world. Noah grabbed his shirt and babbled something that might have been dada. Amara's eyes filled with tears. He's never had a father before. He doesn't even know what that word means. Then I'll teach him. Ethan looked at her over Noah's head. I'll teach him what it means to have a dad who shows up, who's there, who doesn't run away when things get hard. You're really staying? Amara's voice was small, hopeful, scared. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and realize this is too messy? Too complicated? It is messy. It is complicated. Ethan moved closer to her. But it's also real, and I'm done living a life that looks perfect but feels empty. His phone buzzed with a text. The DNA results were in. Ethan opened the file, even though he already knew what it would say. 99.9% probability of paternity. He showed Amara the screen. She read it and smiled through her tears. Now it's official. Now it's official, Ethan agreed. I'm somebody's dad. Thunder rumbled outside. Dark clouds rolled in, turning the afternoon sky gray. Within minutes, rain began to pour, heavy and relentless. The kind of summer storm Charleston was famous for. I should get home before it gets worse, Ethan said. But he didn't move. You could stay. Amara looked at the rain, then back at him. I mean, if you want. The couch isn't comfortable, but it's better than driving in this weather. I'd like that. They spent the evening together as the storm raged outside. The power flickered and went out, leaving them in darkness. Amara found candles and flashlights. She made sandwiches for dinner while Ethan played with Noah on the floor. It was simple, domestic, nothing like the life he'd been living with Clara, the fancy restaurants, the charity galas, the constant networking. But it felt right in a way nothing had felt right in years. When Noah started getting fussy, Amara prepared a bottle. Do you want to feed him? She asked Ethan. I don't know how. It's easy. Just hold him like this, she demonstrated. Support his head. Angle the bottle so he doesn't get air. He'll do the rest. Ethan settled into the rocking chair by the window, Noah in his arms. The baby latched onto the bottle immediately, his eyes drifting closed as he drank. Outside lightning flashed, illuminating the room in brief bursts of white light. Amara sat on the couch watching them. In the candlelight, her face was soft and peaceful. This was what she did every night, Ethan realized. This quiet routine, this simple act of love. "I'm sorry you had to do this alone," he said quietly. "I should have been here. You're here now." Amara pulled a blanket around her shoulders. "That's what matters." When Noah finished his bottle, Ethan burped him like Amara showed him. The baby let out a huge burp and giggled. Ethan couldn't help but laugh. "He's perfect," Ethan whispered. "He is." Amara came over and stroked Noah's curly hair. "He looks like you know. Every time I look at him, I see you." Their eyes met in the flickering candlelight. Ethan's hand brushed hers on Noah's back. The touch sent that familiar electricity through him, the same feeling he'd had when they first met, like something clicking into place. "Amara," he started, but Noah chose that moment to start crying. "He needs to be changed and put to bed," Amara said, stepping back. "I'll do it. Let me help." Together they changed Noah's diaper and put him in his pajamas. Ethan was getting better at it, more confident. When they laid Noah in his crib, the baby reached up with one small hand, touching Ethan's face. "Night-night, buddy," Ethan whispered. "I'll be here in the morning." Noah's eyes drifted closed. Within minutes, he was asleep. Ethan and Amara stood by the crib, watching him breathe. "He's such a good sleeper," Amara said. "Unless he's teething, then it's a nightmare." "I want to be here for that," Ethan said. "The good nights and the bad nights, all of it. You say that now, but when it's 3 in the morning and he's been crying for 2 hours, I'll still want to be here." Ethan turned to face her. "I mean it, Amara. I'm not going anywhere." She looked up at him, tears glistening in her eyes. "I want to believe you, but you have a whole life out there. A business, a family, responsibilities. How long before you realize that this," she gestured around the small apartment, "isn't enough? This is everything." Ethan took her hands. "This is what I've been missing. Not the mansion or the parties or the business deals. This, a real home, a real family." "Ethan, I know I hurt you. I know I have to earn back your trust. But I'm asking you to give me that chance." He squeezed her hands gently. "Let me prove that I'm not the same guy who let you walk away. Let me be the father Noah deserves, the partner you deserve." Lightning flashed again, bright and close. Thunder followed immediately. Amara jumped, and without thinking, Ethan pulled her close. She fit against him perfectly, like she always had. "I'm scared," she whispered against his chest. "I'm scared of believing you, of letting you in, of giving Noah a father who might disappear." "I'm scared too." Ethan rested his chin on her head. "I'm scared of messing this up, of not being good enough, but I'd rather be scared and trying than safe and empty." They stood there in the darkness, holding each other as the storm raged outside. No words, just breathing and heartbeats and the sound of rain against the windows. Finally, Amara pulled back and looked up at him. "Okay," she said, "but we take this slow, for Noah's sake. He's been through enough changes. I won't let him get attached if you're going to leave." "I'm not going to leave. Prove it." Amara's voice was gentle but firm. "Show me. Show him. Don't just say the words. Live them." "I will," Ethan promised. "Starting now." They moved back to the living room. The storm had knocked out the power, but the candles made everything feel warm and intimate. They sat on the couch, not quite touching, but close enough to feel each other's presence. "Tell me about him," Ethan said. "Tell me everything I missed." So Amara did. She told him about finding out she was pregnant, scared and alone, about her first ultrasound, where she cried seeing the heartbeat, about morning sickness so bad she couldn't work for a week, about feeling Noah kick for the first time. "I wished you were there so badly," she admitted. "Every milestone, every moment, I kept imagining what you'd say, how you'd react. And then I'd remember that you didn't want us, and it would hurt all over again." "I did want you," Ethan said fiercely. "I never stopped wanting you. I just didn't know how to fight for it, how to stand up to my mother's expectations and Clara's manipulation. I was weak." "You were young," Amara said. "We both were. We're different people now." "Are we?" Ethan touched her face gently. "Because when I look at you, I feel exactly the same way I did 3 years ago. Like I found the missing piece of myself." Amara's breath caught. Their faces were inches apart. Ethan could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes, the curve of her lips. He wanted to kiss her so badly it hurt, but he didn't. Because she'd asked for slow, because trust had to be rebuilt, because some things were worth waiting for. "I should probably sleep," Amara said, but she didn't move. "Probably," Ethan agreed, also not moving. Lightning flashed again, and in that moment of brightness something shifted between them, something old and familiar but also new, a promise of what could be if they were brave enough to try. "Good night, Ethan," Amara whispered. "Good night, Amara." She went to her bedroom and closed the door. Ethan lay back on the couch, listening to the rain. His phone buzzed with more messages. His mother, his business partners, reporters. He ignored them all. For the first time in 2 years, he was exactly where he wanted to be. Morning came with sunshine and birdsong. The storm had washed the city clean, leaving everything bright and new. Ethan woke to the sound of Noah babbling in the next room, and Amara's soft voice answering him. He sat up, his back protesting another night on the short couch, but he smiled anyway. This uncomfortable couch in this small apartment felt more like home than his mansion ever had. His phone showed 50 new messages. He scrolled through them quickly. His mother demanding he come home. Marcus asking if he was okay. 3 business partners threatening to pull their investments. And one message that made his blood run cold. It was from a gossip website. They'd posted a photo from yesterday. Clara in her wedding dress, mascara running down her face. The headline read, "Billionaire abandons bride for baby mama." The article was vicious. It painted Amara as a gold digger who'd crashed the wedding to trap a rich man. It called Ethan irresponsible and heartless. It quoted sources close to the family, saying the baby probably wasn't even his. Ethan's hands shook with rage. This was exactly what he'd feared. Clara or his mother or someone had leaked a twisted version of the story to make Amara look bad. What's wrong? Amara stood in the doorway, Noah on her hip. She'd seen his face. "Nothing," he lied. "Don't do that." She walked over and took his phone. Her expression hardened as she read the article. "Oh, it's all lies," Ethan said quickly. "I'll fix this. I'll call my lawyer, issue a statement, release Clara's confession." "No." Amara handed back his phone. "Don't make it worse." "How could it be worse? They're calling you a gold digger. And if you release that recording, they'll call me vindictive, or they'll say I made you do it." Amara sighed and sat next to him, Noah squirming to get down. "Let them talk, Ethan. People who matter will know the truth. People who don't matter, why do we care what they think? Because they're hurting you. I've been hurt before. I'll survive." She let Noah down to crawl toward his toys. "What I won't survive is a media war that puts my son in the spotlight. I won't have photographers following us, reporters asking questions, strangers judging every move we make." Ethan hadn't thought of that. Noah was just a baby. He couldn't consent to being in the public eye. And Amara was right. The more they fought back, the bigger the story would become. "So what do we do?" he asked. "We live our lives." Amara stood and walked to the kitchen. "We ignore the gossip and focus on what matters. Noah, family, building something real. That's it? We just let them say whatever they want? For now." She started making coffee. "Eventually something else will happen. Another scandal. Another story. People will forget about us. Until then, we keep our heads down and stay out of the spotlight." It went against every instinct Ethan had. He wanted to fight, to defend her, to make sure everyone knew she wasn't what they were saying. But as he watched Noah play with his blocks, completely oblivious to the chaos around him, he understood. This wasn't about Ethan's ego or reputation. This was about protecting his son. "Okay," he said. "We do it your way." Amara smiled and brought him coffee. "Thank you." They spent the morning in comfortable routine. Amara showed Ethan how to make Noah's breakfast, mashed bananas and oatmeal. Noah got more food on his face than in his mouth, but he giggled the whole time. Ethan found himself laughing too, really laughing, for the first time in years. After breakfast, Amara said she needed to run errands. "I work at the community center 3 days a week," she explained. "I was supposed to be there yesterday, but obviously... Anyway, I need to talk to my boss, explain what happened. Can I come with you?" "To the community center?" Amara looked surprised. "Ethan, it's not your world. It's kids from rough neighborhoods, families struggling to make ends meet, people who might recognize you from the news. All the more reason I should see where you work, where you spend your time." Ethan started cleaning up the breakfast dishes. "Besides, I want to know everything about your life, our life, Noah's life." Amara studied him for a moment, then nodded. Okay, but don't say I didn't warn you. The community center was in a part of Charleston Ethan rarely visited. The buildings were older, the streets narrower, but there was life here. Kids playing basketball in the street, neighbors sitting on porches talking, music floating from open windows. Amara pulled into a parking lot beside a squat brick building. The sign out front read, Hope Street Community Center. Inside, the walls were covered with children's artwork and motivational posters. A group of teenagers played ping pong in one room. In another, elderly women worked on a quilting project. The smell of something cooking came from the kitchen. Amara! A woman in her 50s rushed over, her face concerned. Girl, we saw the news. Are you okay? I'm fine, Miss Jean. Amara shifted Noah to her other hip. This is Ethan, Noah's father. Miss Jean's eyes widened. Then she looked at Noah, then at Ethan, and her expression softened. Well, I'll be. That baby is your spitting image. Nice to meet you, Ethan said, offering his hand. Miss Jean shook it, her grip firm. Amara is the best thing that ever happened to this place. You hurt her again, rich boy or not, you'll answer to me. Yes, ma'am. Jean, where's Tony? Amara asked, referring to her boss. In his office. Go on back. They walked through the center, Amara greeting people as they went. Everyone knew her. Everyone loved her. Ethan saw how she lit up around these people, how natural she was. This was where she belonged. Tony's office was small and cluttered with papers. He was a big man with grey hair and kind eyes. He stood when they entered. Amara, I was hoping you'd come by. He gestured to the chairs. Sit, sit. Tony, I'm so sorry about missing my shift yesterday, Amara started. I know it left you short-staffed and don't worry about that. Tony waved his hand. I'm more worried about you. The news is saying some pretty ugly things. It's all lies, Ethan spoke up. Amara is not what they're saying. She's trying to protect our son. That's all. Tony studied Ethan. You're the groom, the one who walked out of his own wedding. Yes, sir. That took guts. Tony leaned back in his chair. Stupid, maybe, but gutsy. It was the right thing to do. Maybe. Tony turned to Amara. You need time off? We can cover your shifts. No, Amara said quickly. I need to work, I need normal, and I need the money. About that, Tony pulled out an envelope. Some reporter called yesterday, offered me $5,000 for an interview about you. Said she'd pay even more for photos of Noah. Amara's face went pale. You didn't? Of course not. I told her where she could stick her money. Tony slid the envelope across the desk. But others might not be so loyal. You need to be careful. Keep Noah out of public places for a while. Don't post anything on social media. These vultures are circling. Ethan felt sick. He'd brought this on them. His moment of truth at the altar had turned Amara and Noah into targets. I'll hire security, he said. Private guards to watch the apartment. Follow you when you go out. No, Amara's voice was firm. That'll just draw more attention. We'll be careful, but we're not living in a cage. After the meeting, Amara showed Ethan around the center. She introduced him to the kids she tutored, the families she helped with job applications, the seniors she visited. Everyone had a story. Everyone had struggles. And Amara was part of all their lives, helping where she could. This is what you do, Ethan said as they walked back to the car. You change lives. I just help a little. Amara buckled Noah into his car seat. These people do the real work. They show up every day, fight their battles, keep trying. I just give them a place to do it. Don't minimize what you do. Ethan touched her arm. You're amazing. She blushed and looked away. Come on. Noah needs a nap. That afternoon, while Noah slept, Ethan made a decision. He called his lawyer. Ethan, thank God. Richard's voice was harried. I've been trying to reach you for 2 days. We need to discuss damage control. The board is panicking, your investors are threatening to pull out, and your mother has called me 17 times. I need you to do something else first, Ethan said. I need you to set up a trust fund for Noah. Education, medical, living expenses, everything he'll ever need. How much are we talking? $5 million to start. More if necessary. Silence. Then, Ethan, that's a significant commitment. Are you sure? He's my son, I'm sure. And the mother, Amara Lewis. She'll have access to these funds. No, Ethan said firmly. The money is for Noah only, managed by trustees until he's 18. I don't want anyone to say Amara is with me for money. Smart. Richard's tone changed, becoming more approving. I'll draw up the papers. Anything else? Yes. I want to buy a house. Nothing huge. 3 bedrooms, Good neighborhood, close to the community center where Amara works. You're moving in together? Eventually. I hope. Ethan looked toward the bedroom where Noah slept. But even if not, I want somewhere Noah can visit. Somewhere that's his home too. I'll send you some listings. Richard paused. Ethan, for what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Not the smart thing maybe, but the right thing. Thanks, Richard. After he hung up, Ethan felt lighter. He was taking action, building a future, making choices that felt true to who he wanted to be, not who his mother or society expected him to be. His phone rang again. His mother. He couldn't avoid her forever. Hi, Mom. Finally. Helen's voice was ice. I've been trying to reach you for 2 days. We need to talk in person. Now. I'm at Amara's apartment. Then I'm coming there. Mom, I don't care what you think. I'm your mother. You owe me a conversation. She hung up. Ethan swore under his breath. Amara came out of the bedroom, having heard his tone. What's wrong? My mother is coming here. Amara's face tightened. When? Soon, I think. Okay. Amara straightened her shoulders. Okay. Then we'll deal with it. You don't have to be here. You could take Noah and go for a walk. No. Amara's eyes flashed. This is my home. I'm not hiding from anyone, especially not your mother. She needs to see that I'm not going anywhere. 20 minutes later, a black Mercedes pulled up outside. Helen Vaughan emerged wearing a designer suit and oversized sunglasses. She looked up at the modest apartment building like it might give her a disease. Ethan met her at the door. Mom. Ethan. She swept past him into the small living room. Her nose wrinkled slightly at the mismatched furniture and toys scattered on the floor. Then she saw Amara holding Noah. Helen stopped, stared. Her perfect composure cracked just slightly. This is Amara, Ethan said. And this is Noah, your grandson. Helen approached slowly. Noah watched her with wide, curious eyes. He had Ethan's eyes, Helen's eyes, the family eyes that went back 4 generations. May I? Helen asked, surprising everyone. Amara hesitated, then nodded. Helen took Noah gently, like she was handling something precious and fragile. Noah grabbed her pearl necklace immediately. No, baby. Amara reached to stop him. It's fine. Helen smiled, a real smile that transformed her face. My boys used to do the same thing. They all stood in awkward silence. Finally, Helen spoke, still looking at Noah. He has the Vaughan chin and those eyes. She looked up at Amara. How old is he? 13 months. And you've been raising him alone this whole time? Yes, ma'am. While my son was planning a wedding to another woman. Helen's voice was soft but sharp. How did that feel? Amara lifted her chin. Like the man I loved had chosen someone else. Like my son would grow up without a father. But I managed. We managed. Because you had no choice. I always had a choice. I chose to keep him, to love him, to give him the best life I could, even if it was hard. Helen studied Amara for a long moment. Then she handed Noah back and turned to Ethan. We need to talk, alone. Anything you say to me, you can say in front of Amara. Fine. Helen's voice went cold again. You've destroyed everything I worked for, everything your father built. Your business partners are pulling out. Your reputation is in shambles. The family name is being dragged through the mud. And for what? A child you didn't even know existed until 2 days ago. That child is your grandson, Ethan said quietly. And yeah, Mom, for him, I'd destroy everything all over again. Don't be dramatic. I'm not. You taught me that family is everything, that the Vaughan legacy matters. Well, Noah is family, he is the legacy, and I won't let him grow up thinking his father didn't want him. Helen's jaw tightened. You could have done this quietly. A paternity test, a custody arrangement, child support. You didn't have to humiliate Clara in front of 300 people. Clara lied to me for 2 years. Ethan's voice rose. She deleted Amara's messages. She kept me from knowing about my son. She manipulated me into a relationship based on lies. So yes, I walked away from that wedding, and I'd do it again. You have proof of this? I have her confession. On tape. Helen's eyebrows rose. Show me. Ethan played the recording. Helen listened in silence, her face unreadable. When it finished, she sat down heavily on the couch. She caught herself glancing at Noah. I introduced you to Clara. I encouraged that relationship. I thought she was perfect for you. She was perfect for the image you wanted, Ethan said. But she wasn't perfect for me. Helen looked at Amara, really looked at her. You work at a community center? Yes, ma'am. You have a degree? Associate's degree. I was working on my bachelor's when I got pregnant. Amara's voice was steady despite the interrogation. I put school on hold to focus on Noah. No family money. My parents died when I was 19. I have my brother David. That's it. And you've been raising Noah on a community center salary? And working weekends at a bakery, yes. Helen was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that shocked everyone. You could have gone to the press, sold your story for a fortune. Instead, you tried to contact Ethan privately. You asked for nothing. You only showed up when you thought he deserved to know before making a permanent mistake. I wasn't trying to ruin anything, Amara said. I just wanted Noah to know his father. Even though you thought Ethan had abandoned you. Even though, Amara's voice broke slightly. Because Noah deserves better than I had. I grew up without a father. I know what that feels like. I couldn't do that to him if there was any chance. She couldn't finish. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Ethan moved to her side, putting his arm around her shoulders. Helen stood. She walked to her purse and pulled out a checkbook. How much do you need? Excuse me? Amara wiped her eyes. To finish school. To stop working 2 jobs to give Noah what he needs. Helen's pen was poised. How much? I don't want your money, Amara said firmly. It's not charity. It's family support. Noah is a Vaughn. Vaughns take care of their own. Mom, Ethan started. Let me do this. Helen's voice softened. Let me fix one thing at least. I can't undo the past 2 years, but I can help now. Amara looked at Ethan. He nodded. It's your choice, he said. Whatever you want. I don't need money, Amara said finally, but I could use help. With childcare maybe, so I can go back to school, finish my degree. Done. Helen put away the checkbook. I'll arrange it. She picked up her purse and walked to the door. Then she turned back. Ethan, you're still my son, and I'm still angry about how you handled this, but she looked at Noah, who was playing with his blocks, oblivious to the tension. I understand why you did it. Family comes first, even when it's messy. After she left, Ethan and Amara stood in stunned silence. Did that just happen? Amara asked. I think my mother just accepted you. She didn't accept me. She accepted Noah. It's a start. Ethan pulled her close. One step at a time. That evening, Ethan cooked dinner, or tried to. He burned the pasta, oversalted the sauce, and somehow set off the smoke alarm. Amara laughed so hard she cried. Noah banged his spoon on his high chair, joining the chaos. It was messy and loud and imperfect, and it was the best meal Ethan had ever had. Later, after Noah was asleep, they sat on the couch together. Amara had turned on the TV to a cooking show, the volume low. Ethan wasn't really watching. He was too aware of Amara beside him, the warmth of her body, the sound of her breathing. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For giving me a second chance. For letting me be part of Noah's life. For not giving up on me even when you had every reason to. Amara turned to look at him. In the soft light of the TV, her face was beautiful and open. I wanted to give up on you. So many times. But then Noah would smile and I'd see you in his face, and I'd remember why I loved you in the first place. Loved? Ethan's heart hammered. Past tense. I don't know. Amara's voice was barely a whisper. I don't know what I feel anymore. I'm confused and scared and hopeful all at once. That makes 2 of us. They sat in silence, not quite touching but close enough to feel each other's warmth. Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, time seemed to slow down, stretch out, hold this moment forever. Ethan? Yeah? Don't let me get hurt again. Amara's voice broke. I can survive anything except watching Noah's heart break. If you're going to leave, do it now, before he gets attached. Before he loves you as much as I... She stopped. As much as you what? Ethan turned to face her fully. Amara met his eyes, and in them, he saw everything. The love she'd tried to bury. The hope she was afraid to feel. The fear of being broken again. As much as I still love you, she whispered. Even though I shouldn't. Even though it's stupid and dangerous and probably going to destroy me. I never stopped. Ethan's breath caught. He reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he cupped her face in his hands. I love you too. I never stopped either. And I know I don't deserve another chance. But I'm asking for one anyway. Not just to be Noah's father. To be your partner. Your equal. The man you can count on. Promise me, Amara whispered, tears streaming down her face. Promise me you'll stay. I promise. He leaned in slowly, his heart pounding. Their lips met in a kiss that was gentle and desperate and full of 2 years of longing. Amara's arms wrapped around his neck. Ethan pulled her closer, pouring everything he felt into this moment, all the regret, the hope, the love. When they finally pulled apart, both were crying. "I'm terrified," Amara admitted. "Me too." Ethan rested his forehead against hers. "But I'd rather be terrified with you than safe with anyone else." They held each other as the TV played on, forgotten. Outside, the city lights twinkled. Inside, two broken people found their way back to each other, one careful step at a time. It wasn't the fairy tale Ethan had once imagined. There was no grand gesture, no perfect moment, no guarantee of a happy ending. But it was real, and that made it better than any fairy tale could ever be. 3 weeks later, Ethan stood in the kitchen of his new house unpacking boxes. It wasn't the mansion he'd grown up in. It was a modest 3-bedroom colonial in a quiet neighborhood with a fenced backyard and a porch swing, the kind of house where families lived, where kids played in the street, where neighbors knew each other's names. It felt like home. "Where do you want the high chair?" Marcus called from the doorway, carrying the box Ethan had ordered. "Kitchen corner by the window," Ethan pointed. "Thanks for helping, man." "No problem." Marcus set down the box and looked around. "This is really different from your old place." "Yeah. You happy?" Ethan thought about it. His business had taken a hit. 2 partners had pulled out, and several deals had fallen through. The media still talked about him, though the tone had shifted from scandal to curiosity. His mother was slowly coming around, though she still made pointed comments about that situation. But Noah called him Dada now. Amara smiled when he walked into a room, and for the first time in years, Ethan woke up excited about his life, instead of just going through the motions. "Yeah," he said. "I'm happy." Marcus grinned. "Good. You deserve it." They spent the afternoon setting up Noah's room. Ethan had painted it a soft blue and bought a crib, a changing table, books, toys. More than Noah would ever need, probably. But Ethan wanted his son to have everything when he visited. Wanted him to know this was his home too. His phone buzzed. A text from Amara. "Noah's asking for you, can you come by?" Ethan smiled. "I gotta go." "Hot date?" Marcus teased. "Something like that." 20 minutes later, Ethan knocked on Amara's apartment door. She opened it looking frazzled. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she had what looked like baby food on her shirt. "Thank God you're here." She stepped back to let him in. "He won't eat. He's been crying for an hour. I think he's teething again." Ethan found Noah in his high chair, tears streaming down his red face. The moment he saw Ethan, he reached up with both arms. "Dada!" Ethan's heart melted. It happened every time Noah called him that. He picked up his son and held him close. Noah buried his face in Ethan's shoulder, his crying quieting to hiccups. "Hey, buddy," Ethan said softly. "What's wrong? Teeth hurting?" Noah nodded against his shoulder. "I'll get the teething gel," Amara said, disappearing into the bathroom. Ethan walked Noah around the small apartment, bouncing gently, rubbing his back. He sang a song his mother used to sing to him when he was little, something about stars and dreams. Noah's breathing evened out. Amara returned with the gel and a cold teething ring. Together, they got Noah settled. Within 15 minutes, he was calm and playing with his blocks like nothing had happened. "You're magic," Amara said, collapsing on the couch. "He never calms down that fast for me. You're with him all day. You do the hard work." Ethan sat beside her. "I just get the fun parts." "About that," Amara turned to face him. "I've been thinking. You bought that house. You're here every day. Noah asks for you constantly. Maybe," she took a breath, "maybe it's time we talk about the next step." Ethan's heart raced. What kind of next step? Moving in together. For real. Not just you visiting, but actually living together. As a family. It was what Ethan had been hoping for but hadn't dared to push. "Are you sure? I don't want to rush you." "I'm terrified," Amara admitted, "but I'm also tired of pretending we're not building something real here. Noah deserves a home where both his parents are, and She looked down at her hands. "I want to try, really try, to be a family." Ethan took her hands. "I want that too, more than anything. But we need rules." Amara's voice was firm. "We sleep in separate rooms until we're sure this is working. No lying, no secrets. And if it's not working, if we're making Noah's life harder instead of better, we stop. We figure out co-parenting instead." "Agreed." "I mean it, Ethan. Noah comes first, always." "I know, and I wouldn't want it any other way." He squeezed her hands. "When do you want to move? Is next weekend too soon?" "Next weekend is perfect." They smiled at each other, and Ethan felt something settle in his chest. Hope. Real, solid hope for a future he'd almost thrown away. The next few days were a blur of packing and planning. Ethan hired movers for the heavy stuff, but Amara insisted on packing Noah's things herself. "I need to know where everything is," she explained. David came by to help, his wife Maria with him. David still watched Ethan with barely hidden suspicion, but he was trying, for Amara's sake. "You hurt my sister again," David said while carrying boxes to the truck, "and I don't care how rich you are, I'll make you regret it." "I know," Ethan said, "and I'd deserve it." David studied him. "You really love her. More than I knew it was possible to love someone. And Noah? He's my whole world." David nodded slowly. "Okay then, just don't make me come over there and kick your ass." "Deal." Moving day came with sunshine and nervous energy. Amara stood in her empty apartment, looking around at the place that had been her sanctuary for 2 years. "I raised my baby here," she said softly, "had my first moments alone with him, figured out how to be a mom." "You'll always have those memories," Ethan said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "But now we get to make new ones. Together." The new house felt huge after the small apartment. Amara walked from room to room, touching walls, looking out windows. "It's so much space," she kept saying. "It's ours," Ethan corrected. "Yours and Noah's and mine." They spent the day unpacking. Noah helped by pulling things out of boxes and scattering them around. By evening, the house looked lived in and chaotic and real. That night they made dinner together, spaghetti that didn't burn this time. Noah sat in his new high chair by the kitchen window, watching birds in the backyard. After dinner, they gave Noah a bath in the upstairs bathroom, getting more water on the floor than in the tub. "Bedtime," Amara announced, wrapping Noah in a towel. "I'll read to him," Ethan offered. In Noah's new room, Ethan settled into the rocking chair with his son and a picture book. Noah's eyes grew heavy as Ethan read about a little bear looking for his mother. By the last page, Noah was asleep. Ethan sat there for a long time, just holding his son, memorizing this moment. The weight of Noah in his arms, the soft sound of his breathing, the complete trust in his sleeping face. "You okay?" Amara whispered from the doorway. "Yeah." Ethan carefully stood and laid Noah in his crib. This is everything I never knew I needed." They stood together, watching Noah sleep. Amara leaned against Ethan, and he wrapped his arm around her shoulders. This was their family, imperfect and complicated, and more real than anything in Ethan's old life had ever been. "I'm glad I walked into that church," Amara said quietly. "Me too, even though I ruined your wedding. You saved my life." Ethan kissed the top of her head. "That wedding would have been the biggest mistake I ever made." They turned off the light and left the door cracked the way Noah liked it. In the hallway they stood awkwardly, suddenly aware that they were alone. "So," Amara said, "separate rooms." "Right, separate rooms." Ethan's voice was rough. He wanted nothing more than to kiss her, to carry her to his room, to show her exactly how much he loved her, but they'd agreed to take it slow. "Good night, Ethan." "Good night, Amara." She went into her room and closed the door. Ethan stood in the hallway for a long moment before going to his own room. Sleep was a long time coming. The next morning, Ethan woke to the sound of Noah crying. He checked the time, 5:30. He threw on sweatpants and hurried down the hall, but Amara was already there, lifting Noah from his crib. "I got him," she said. "You can go back to sleep." "I'm up." Ethan took Noah. "Let me. You've been doing this alone for over a year. Time I pulled my weight." He carried Noah downstairs, changed his diaper, and made a bottle. By the time he finished, dawn was breaking through the kitchen windows. Noah drank his milk contentedly, his eyes on Ethan's face. "You're a morning person, huh?" Ethan said. "We're going to have to work on that, buddy." Footsteps on the stairs. Amara appeared wearing an oversized t-shirt and shorts, her hair everywhere. She looked beautiful. "Coffee?" she asked. "Please." They sat at the kitchen table as the sun came up, Noah between them. No words, just the comfortable silence of two people learning to be a family. This became their routine. Early mornings with Noah, breakfasts together. Amara going to work at the community center while Ethan worked from home, Noah napping in his office. Afternoons at the park, evenings cooking dinner together, bath time, stories, sleep. It was simple and domestic, and nothing like the life Ethan had planned, and he loved every moment of it, but the outside world hadn't forgotten about them. One afternoon, a photographer showed up at the park. Ethan saw the long lens camera and immediately stood, blocking Noah from view. "We're leaving," he told Amara. "What's wrong?" "Photographer, don't look, just get Noah in the stroller." They left quickly, but the photo made it online that night, Billionaire's secret family, first photos of baby Noah. Amara saw it and went pale. They got his face. I'll call my lawyer, get a restraining order. It won't help. Amara's voice shook. They'll just get sneakier. Use longer lenses. Follow us everywhere. She was right. Over the next week, photographers showed up at the grocery store outside the community center, even near their house. Amara stopped taking Noah out. She ordered groceries online. She looked over her shoulder constantly. This is no way to live, Ethan said one evening after another close call. I know, but what choice do we have? We could give them what they want. One interview, controlled setting, our terms. Tell our story the way it actually happened. Then maybe they'll leave us alone. Amara was quiet for a long time. What if it makes things worse? What if it makes things better? Ethan took her hand. Right now we're hiding. We're letting them control the narrative. But if we speak up, tell the truth about Clara's lies and why I left that wedding, maybe people will understand. Or maybe they'll judge us harder. Maybe. But at least it'll be our truth, not theirs. Amara thought about it for 3 days. Finally, she agreed. One interview. Local news. Not tabloids. And if they ask anything that makes me uncomfortable, I'm walking out. Deal. The interview was set up for the following week. The journalist, a woman named Patricia Chen, came to their house. She was professional and kind, putting them at ease. Just tell me your story, she said, setting up her camera. From the beginning. So they did. Ethan talked about meeting Amara 3 years ago, falling in love, then letting fear and family pressure drive them apart. Amara talked about the pregnancy, the blocked messages raising Noah alone. Ethan explained about discovering Clara's lies and making the choice to walk away from a wedding built on deception. Do you regret it? Patricia asked, walking out like that. I regret the pain it caused, Ethan said, but I don't regret the choice. My son deserved to have a father. Amara deserved the truth, and I deserved a chance to be part of something real. And now? Are you two together? Ethan looked at Amara. She looked back, her eyes soft. We're figuring it out, she said. Taking it day by day, learning to be a family. Do you love him? Patricia asked gently. Amara's hand found Ethan's under the table. Yes, I do. And you? Patricia turned to Ethan. Do you love her? More than anything, Ethan said, squeezing Amara's hand. She and Noah are my whole world. The interview aired 2 days later. The response was overwhelming. Social media exploded, but this time, most of it was supportive. People called Ethan brave. They called Clara manipulative. They called Amara strong. The tide had turned. Clara released a statement apologizing for her poor judgment and announcing she was leaving Charleston for a fresh start. Ethan's business partners slowly started calling again, wanting to rebuild bridges. His mother watched the interview 3 times and called to say she was proud of him. Most importantly, the photographers stopped camping outside their house. We did it, Amara said, reading supportive comments on her phone. We actually did it. We did, Ethan agreed. Together. That night, after Noah was asleep, they sat on the porch swing watching the stars. The summer air was warm and full of fireflies. Somewhere down the street, kids laughed and played. Ethan? Amara's voice was quiet. Yeah? I don't want separate rooms anymore. Ethan's heart stopped. What? I'm done being scared. Done protecting myself from maybe getting hurt. She turned to face him, her eyes shining in the moonlight. I love you. I want to be with you, really be with you. Build this life we keep talking about. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Ethan stood and pulled her up with him. He cupped her face in his hands, memorizing every detail. I love you, Amara Lewis. I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving it. Then prove it now, she whispered. He kissed her, deep and slow and full of promise. She kissed him back, her arms wrapping around his neck, pulling him closer. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. Come on, Ethan said, taking her hand. They went inside together, up the stairs, past Noah's room where their son slept peacefully, into Ethan's room, their room now. That night, they rebuilt what had been broken, not just their relationship but their trust, their hope, their belief in second chances. They loved each other slowly, carefully, like people who knew how precious this was, how easily it could be lost. And when morning came, Ethan woke with Amara in his arms and knew he was finally, truly, home. 6 months later, autumn painted Charleston in gold and red. Ethan sat in his home office, Noah playing with blocks at his feet, while he finalized a new business deal. His company had recovered, different than before, but stronger. He'd learned to choose partners based on character, not just profit. "Dada, look!" Noah held up a tower of blocks. "That's amazing, buddy." Ethan bent down to examine it. "You're so smart." Noah beamed and immediately knocked the tower down, giggling. Footsteps on the stairs. Amara appeared, home from class. She was back in school, finishing her bachelor's degree. Helen had insisted on paying for it, and after much debate, Amara had accepted. "How was it?" Ethan asked, standing to kiss her. "Good. We're starting our thesis proposals next month." She scooped up Noah. "And guess what? I got an A on my social work paper." "Of course you did. You're brilliant." "Stop." But she smiled, pleased. That evening, David and Maria came for dinner. Helen came too, bringing enough food to feed an army. They all crowded around the dining table, this strange, imperfect family they'd built from broken pieces. Helen held Noah on her lap, feeding him bits of mashed potato. "He looks more like Ethan every day," she commented. "God help us," David joked, and everyone laughed. After dinner, while the others cleaned up, Ethan pulled Amara aside. "Can you come outside for a minute?" "Now? It's freezing." "Please, just for a minute." They bundled up and went to the backyard. The night was clear and cold, stars bright overhead. Ethan led her to the middle of the yard and turned to face her. "What's this about?" Amara asked, her breath fogging in the air. "Do you remember 3 years ago when we first met?" "Of course. You spilled coffee on my laptop." Amara laughed. "You were so mad." "I wasn't mad. I was pretending to be mad so I'd have an excuse to talk to you." Ethan took her hands. "You apologized 10 times, bought me a new coffee, gave me your number in case I needed to send you the repair bill. I never got that bill, because I didn't care about the laptop. I cared about seeing you again." Ethan's hands shook, but not from cold. "You changed my life that day, Amara. You showed me what real love looks like, what family means, what it means to choose truth over comfort." "Ethan, what?" He dropped to one knee. Amara gasped. "I know I already messed this up once," Ethan said, pulling a small box from his pocket. "I almost married the wrong person for all the wrong reasons, but I'm not that man anymore. You and Noah changed me, made me better, made me real." He opened the box. Inside was a simple gold band with a small diamond. Nothing flashy, nothing meant to impress, just honest and true, like their love. "Amara Lewis, will you marry me? Not because it looks good or makes sense on paper, but because I love you more than I knew it was possible to love someone, because I want to spend every day for the rest of my life being Noah's dad and your partner, because you're my home." Tears streamed down Amara's face. "You're sure? Really sure? Because I'm a package deal. Me and Noah and my brother and this messy, complicated life. I've never been more sure of anything." Ethan's voice broke. "Say yes. Please say yes." "Yes," Amara whispered, then louder. "Yes, yes, I'll marry you." Ethan stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her as she laughed and cried at the same time. He slipped the ring on her finger, and it fit perfectly. Behind them, the back door burst open. David, Maria, and Helen spilled into the yard, cheering. They'd been watching through the window. "About time," David called. Helen was crying happy tears. "Welcome to the family officially." They all huddled together in the cold, passing Noah around, celebrating this new beginning. Later, after everyone left, Ethan and Amara sat on the couch with Noah between them, looking at the ring on her finger. "When do you want to get married?" Ethan asked. "Small ceremony," Amara said. "Just family. Nothing fancy." "Perfect." Noah yawned and curled up against Ethan's chest. Within minutes, he was asleep. Ethan looked at his son, then at his fiancée, and felt a wave of gratitude so strong it almost knocked him over. A year ago, he'd been standing at an altar about to marry the wrong woman. 6 months ago, he'd been sleeping on Amara's uncomfortable couch, trying to figure out how to be a father. Now he had everything he'd ever needed, even if it wasn't what he'd thought he wanted. "I'm glad you walked into that church," he said quietly. "Me too." Amara rested her head on his shoulder. "Best mistake I ever made." It wasn't a mistake. It was the bravest thing I've ever seen. They sat in comfortable silence, their son sleeping between them, the ring on Amara's finger catching the light. Outside, the world went on, complicated and messy and full of judgment. But inside their home, they had something more valuable than any reputation or fortune. They had each other. They had truth. They had love that had survived lies and time and fear, and that Ethan knew was worth everything. 1 year later, on a perfect autumn afternoon, a small group gathered in the garden behind the same church where everything had changed. But this time the doors were closed to strangers. This time it was just family. Amara wore a simple white dress. Nothing fancy, nothing meant to impress. Just her, beautiful and real. Noah, now 2.5, toddled beside her in a tiny suit, carrying a pillow with their rings. Ethan stood under an arch of yellow roses, his heart so full he could barely breathe. Marcus stood beside him as best man. Helen sat in the front row, holding a handkerchief, already crying. David and Maria were there, smiling, and a few friends from the community center, the people who'd stood by Amara when she had nothing. As Amara walked toward him, Noah's hand in hers, Ethan thought about how different this was from the wedding that never happened. No hundreds of guests, no photographers, no pressure or performance, just truth, just love, just family. Amara reached him, and Noah ran the last few steps into Ethan's arms. "Dada, hey buddy." Ethan lifted him up, and Noah giggled. Then Amara joined them, and they stood together, all three, as the minister began. "We're gathered here today." But Ethan barely heard the words. He was too busy looking at his family, his son, his bride, his second chance at everything. When it came time for vows, Ethan spoke from his heart. "Amara, you saved my life. You showed me what courage looks like, what real love looks like. You gave me the greatest gift anyone could give, our son, and a chance to be the man I always should have been. I promise to choose you every day, to show up, to be honest, to build a life that's real, not just pretty on the surface." Amara wiped her eyes. "Ethan, you broke my heart once, but you also had the courage to admit your mistakes and do the hard work of becoming someone I could trust again. You show up for Noah every single day. You make me laugh, you make me believe in second chances. I promise to love you through the messy moments, the hard days, and all the beautiful, ordinary moments in between." They exchanged rings, simple gold bands they'd chosen together. When the minister said, "You may kiss your bride," Ethan pulled Amara close and kissed her gently, while Noah, still in Ethan's arms, patted both their faces and laughed. Everyone clapped and cheered. It was small and simple and absolutely perfect. At the reception, a barbecue in Ethan and Amara's backyard, Helen gave a toast. "When my son called off his first wedding, I thought he'd lost his mind. I was angry and embarrassed and sure he'd made the biggest mistake of his life." She smiled at Amara. "I was wrong. Walking away from that wedding was the bravest, smartest thing he ever did, because it led him here, to real love, to family, to becoming the man his father and I always hoped he'd be." She raised her glass. "To Ethan and Amara, may your love continue to grow stronger every day." Later, as the sun set and fireflies danced in the yard, Ethan and Amara swayed together on the makeshift dance floor. Noah had fallen asleep in Helen's arms, but everyone else was still celebrating. "Happy?" Ethan asked, his arms around his wife. "So happy," Amara said. "You? More than I deserve. You deserve this." Amara looked up at him. "You did the work. You showed up. You earned this." "We earned it," Ethan corrected. "Both of us. Together." They kissed as their family and friends cheered around them. And as Ethan held his wife, surrounded by the people who mattered most, he realized something important. The fairy tale ending he'd once imagined, the perfect wedding, the perfect image, the perfect life, wouldn't have made him happy. It would have been beautiful on the outside and empty on the inside. This messy, complicated, real life, this was the happy ending, not because it was perfect, but because it was true. And truth, Ethan had learned, was the only foundation strong enough to build forever on. The end.